What's up? What's up?
Yo, how you doing?
I can't complain. How about you?
I could always complain, but we'll see what complaints unravel as
Hmm.
we continue. I guess broadly, it's one of the good days.
I can agree with that. So, do we need to introduce ourselves? I'm Hakim Callwood. You can find me online as Hakim's Art and Stuff. I do 2D visual art stuff like um, murals with spray paint or like digital illustration or acrylic on canvas, all of that type of stuff. And local artists, local freelance artists.
Yeah, and I am Craig Campbell. If you were looking for me online, you would have to resort to CM Campbell. No periods in between, no dots. Um, Craig Campbell is a famous country musician, so I could not use that name. So you'd have to look me up, CM Campbell. I'm a comic artist and illustrator, as well as a painter and curation. It's different. I'm a comic artist. I'm those things on certain days of the year.
You are you
But
make sweet comics for real.
do you know? It's thank
How's
you.
that one you were telling
It's
me about? You were telling me about a new project like maybe fall of last year or something. I don't want to ruin
uh,
your concept, but it was you know which one I'm talking about.
I do know. I think it was Black Woman with Tenure. Was that the one?
Mm, no, it was about to do with it was about the languages. Is it the same one?
This is a bit of a deep cut. Okay, so this is actually a fun book. So I mean, one of the things that I do is I work usually in editorial work. So for Hyperallergic, for the margins, and their short comics. But I do write long form comics and a lot of scripts. And this is actually a deep cut that like I haven't put this out, but
Yeah,
it's
can
a
you are you
work.
comfortable with telling the concept? Can you like pack it
Yeah.
down to like what's
Oh
it
no.
about in like 3 sentences?
Okay. So it's about a young black child, 14 years old, and his little sister getting offered the opportunity to speak every African language, and they say no because they want to be able to continue to hang out with their friends. And within 10 years, within 4 years, so 14, 4 years happens, all of the friends that he has learn that they take the offer. And the catch is if you learn the African languages, you have to forget your colonial language. And so he's the only person, the only black person in
That
all
speak
of
English.
his his space that speaks English, and his little sister. And
Man, that's
that's the
crazy.
basic concept. I mean, I have no problem talking about concepts for stories and stuff like that. Like, really, the hard work is the hard work. The writing
Yeah,
concepts are
for
easy.
sure.
I could
Or
write
just
concepts
just
all
that
day.
just staying on and like getting it done. I know I got comics that I've been working on for years that I'm just like all I got to do is color these pages and it's done. Yet here I am, pages uncolored.
Well, comics is a really interesting art practice because I find with comics it's just such a commitment. Like before, because I've done painting and I know that painting you can't just make one painting. You have to make a body of work, like to like your gallery. The industry usually demands of you that you reflect on an aesthetic for 6 to 12 pieces, and then
Hmm.
come out with that body. And for me, like I feel like doing that in 6 months would be a very doable goal.
Right.
All I would need is the space. But with comics, it's like I have to commit to a single idea for like a year.
And the aspect of writing. So not only do you got to draw it, and drawing is more than drawing. You got to compose it. You got to strategize how many pages, how many panels per page, what are the panels going to look like. And then you got to design the characters, and then you got to do all the drawing. So it's like it's really a boatload of work.
Yeah, actually, I think that one of the things, and I guess this happens with all art, is that at some point, rendering becomes less important than a lot of like storytelling becomes like this is about the storytelling.
Yeah, I see that in people that some of the artists that, in my own words, are very successful do that. Like, there's a point where you could tell that, like, I have a message I want to get across. I'm going to get it across in this amount of time with this amount of work, whatever. And we're not looking to make every last piece of it 100% beautiful because it's more about the whole than it is an individual piece.
Exactly. I mean, you have to you have to write it, you have to lay it out. I mean, and also like as far as the time that it takes to perfect an aesthetic, and to any artist who's taken the time to learn how to do hands, like like it's one of those things where you want to continue to be making as you are growing as an artist, and often with comics, like right now. Like writing is my like. Is it my favorite part? It's kind of my favorite part. It's my favorite part when I do it. But I haven't been really able to write over the quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I ended up doing is just like going over all these scripts that I've accumulated because I just write compulsively, and that's like I like with the art. It's just like it's practice. It's practice. There's no inspiration. There's no thing. There is kind of an understanding of aesthetics and the way that I want things to be laid out.
One of the problems I have is that, like, as I work on a comic, it takes me so long to finish it. By the time, like, I'll stop in one section and then time will go by, and when I come back, I draw completely different. Like, I got examples over here. I got I got my tattoo, Space Boy.
Yeah.
But now I don't draw Space Boy like that at all. So if I had an unfinished Space Boy comic looking like that, it would be hard to replicate that. Or like I have some old Space Boy, Space Girl here. But then maybe like a year from then, I came out with this one. And they have, I'm not mad at the evolution. I'm supposed to get better and stuff. But it's hard for me to keep the consistency when I keep changing. I feel like a part of this, I'm a young dude. I'm still growing as an artist and a man every day. So like sometimes I'm like, yeah, I just don't feel like that. I drew that way because I felt a certain way, and I don't feel that no more.
Actually, I think that like Space Boy is a good example of kind of character design for the intention of coming back and picking it up because when like I feel like often when people do heavy designs, and this happens a lot in comics, everybody gets that like little Todd McFarlane in them, and they want to do like this crazy detailed rendering job. And one of the issues, there are several issues with approaching it that way, things that you lose. But one of the things is maintaining the consistency is really hard the more detail you do. And so, actually, hopefully, I got this mug. All right.
Yeah.
So this is a Mickey Mouse mug, and it's just sketches of Mickey Mouse. This is the kind of dude I am. I have stuff like this, but these designs are laid out in terms of proportions, and like basically as simply as one can design a character, so that anybody could pick it up and kind of do something.
I watched the new Mickey Mouses on YouTube and stuff, and they have the same, like the literal picture quality is going up, but it's got the same vibes and it's got the same proportion.
Yeah, I mean, one good way of getting around that here, I'm gonna pull this little thing up. Let's go to share screen right here. One way I got around that is, there we go. Ooh. Well, I started to just use myself as my primary example and just minimize.
You talking about the 10-year?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love this one too.
Oh, I have to hit all of this stuff. But a lot of my character designs ended up relying heavily on minimizing all of the experiences and all of the effects. So the images are basically me, but also I'm very easy to caricature. Even looking at the clothes and the way the clothes are laid out, you could see that like the clothes is full, just completely black. The in-between spaces are completely black. Everything is minimal shape and kind of just this rectangle and some lines sticking out the bottom.
Yeah, I like it. And it works. It works good for this. It works really good for this comic.
Well, and also, I mean, for comics, I mean, you're gonna have to go smaller and larger, and it kind of has to visually be identifiable.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Yeah,
a lot of
it's all
those,
about that silhouette.
yeah, that silhouette. Yeah, any place I could fit a silhouette in usually helps me with my my comics time. And if anyone's doing editorial comics, if you're doing dailies and strips and political cartoons, you know that time is some serious money.
Yeah, that comic definitely gave me vibes of like, you know, Peanuts and the Boondocks and stuff, which is a good segue into us talking about how comics have literally affected our lives. Me growing up as a kid, I had an older brother. My brother's 13 years older than me, so he's reading comics, and I just want to, you know, emulate him. So I started reading comics before I could even put together what was really happening. You could read the visual language. So that's like that's the first language I learned, was the visual language in comics. And then, you know, as I grew up, comics in like a less like educational way and like a more of a emotional way. I used to live with my mom, and my dad lived in the Virgin Islands, and over there they would get the Boondocks in a comic strip in the newspaper. So my dad would save them all up and send them back here, and then me and my mom would read them together. So comics was literally bringing my family together at one point.
Yeah, actually, it's interesting because you brought up the Boondocks, and I feel like the Boondocks were like a cornerstone of my comics education. Like I had one of the things about comics is I had big literacy issues. I was in like special ed classes. I just didn't. For some reason, things just didn't click when I was in school, and you know, it's kind of a weird feedback loop. You're not performing well, and then they say you're not performing well, and you feel like maybe you're just not good, and so you stop trying.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got in kind of an educational spiral. But like I remember, I would be in the space where the place I started reading was comics, and then it turned into strips specifically. Like I was reading the Boondocks. I was skimming comics. I was like, oh yeah, Superman did a thing. Okay, cool. That's cool. All right, this thing happened. Cool. Yeah, this person said this. Cool. But Boondocks, I remember like reading it and being like, this is like so engaging. Unfortunately, there's just not. I often wish that there was more Black experience comics.
Yeah.
Present, because they're fairly limited. I mean, they exist, and
you know, right now we're in such a lucky space. I mean, we're in an unlucky space as the climate of the world, but we're in a lucky space as far as having the internet, because it's hard to say there's a lack of anything until you search the whole internet for it, and you can't search the whole internet. So, you know, this might be a chance to look up some more Black experience comics online on Twitter or something. There's probably a whole group of them or something like that. You never know.
Well, and I think that's one of the things that I keep in mind as I move forward in comics and educating and things like that, is that the notion that if there is not a space, you could help to contribute to create that space. And I'm really excited at seeing the comics that have come out recently, because they're not just Black comics. They're not just Black superheroes. They're not just, so you have like Miss Marvel, who is like a Middle Eastern superhero who's Muslim. But then you get like more like left field strips that do like really fantastic and interesting things. I don't know. It's a really exciting time to be involved in comics. It's intimidating. I was like, there's so much out there, but I try not to think of it as a competitive thing. I need a conversation,
a comic team, because I got all types of ideas, man. But the execution is where I'm lacking. Yeah. Like many people, I'm sure a lot of people probably think I'm just killing it 10 for 10 with execution, but that's not true. That's not realistic. You know, I do what I can. I try to make myself look good, but there's a point where you need to delegate and you need to work with a team and stuff.
At this point, I feel like starting becomes harder because I reflect on the work that is in front of me, and I can look at it. I can look at a workload because I've been doing this long enough.
Right.
I could look at a project and be like 3 months, 7 months, 2 months.
Let's take a break real
this
quick and do that raffle question. So we have a coupon. What's it? $25 coupon.
$25
to a local biz, to a local something, and I guess you comment the answer. I don't know how the technical aspect works, but I do know the answer to the question. So our question here is, I know it sounds subjective, but it's not. So who's the most famous comic superhero that came from Ohio, who created in Ohio? So we're gonna let y'all work on that and figure that out. It's one of them answers where like you know the answer, but
stop with all your hints.
Okay,
we gonna see what they got. What you got?
Right. So good luck with that. I brought a pile. I got like a pile of comics over here.
Let's see what you got.
I got Batman versus Spawn.
Ooh. Man, that was one. I remember I owned that. That was back when
they don't know
comics bubble was happening.
Where's the page in here?
Yeah. Oh no, I mean, this came out at a time when I think I was collecting first because I thought they would make me rich still.
Man, we all fell for that.
That was not. I guess I was like 12, maybe 10 when that came out. But like, it was the most. The 90s is a fascinating time just because the comic books were so gratuitously sexy and violent. Like
they were like super buff, and then the girls were also super buff but also busty at the same time. It was like I don't know what was going on. Did they know that there was more than one way to draw people?
Well, this is the thing about it is I thought about it, and it's just this notion of the 90s. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone. A bunch of people saw Predator and was like, "Oh,
that makes a lot of sense."
And sexy dudes.
Yep. Okay, I got another one for you. I knew you would like seeing the comics I got.
Oh man, you brought me back. I'm gonna have to borrow that from you one day. Reread it.
Okay, so I got some manga over here. One Punch.
Okay.
I love One Punch.
One Punch. Actually, could you open that up for me? Is that early?
It's like a manga. Benji brought it from Japan for me. It's not like a traditional comic. I don't understand what it is because I can't read it, but I can show you some cool pics in here.
Okay, so if anybody in the audience could correct me on this one, because you probably know more than I do about One Punch Man. I was under the impression it was an online comic that was made independently.
Yeah, it was.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so it was an online comic made independently. And that is the best example I could tell you of looking at an artist's progress in front of you. Because you could see their rendering skills.
Well, it looks like I think it was like I feel like it was a parody. It looks like they were purposely just wilding out on the art. And then it just,
I mean, there were just certain projects. And exploring these projects, like, honestly, your limitations will define you. And that's the thing I love about comics is that you aren't going to be firing on no one fires on all cylinders.
No,
like the artist, writer,
I mean, you can, colorist. You feel me? But why would you do that to yourself? You have a life to live. You have a family. You have a dog or a plant or something. Don't do that. Right here we got Aphrodisiac.
Do you know I'm gonna have to read that one? That was. Man.
The art in this is insane too. Let me find something cool. I should have had Pages bookmarked too if I was that fan.
Yeah.
Like all spaced out and like.
Oh, so this is the interesting thing also. I think people's approaches to coloring the black body in comics is really intriguing because it's so diverse.
I like when I see a way that I would have never done it. I'm like, wow. Or like when people do it with reds, when people show the black skin tone with reds. Just and not even like a reddish brown. Like it's like you can just red, but you can tell just kind of like by features, maybe by mannerisms. I don't know.
Well, and that's the other thing about like being able, what we were talking about earlier with comics having to be quick. You have to put out the comics. You can't necessarily sit here and every time you do a panel, start at square one. You have to establish your color palette, and you have to like go with it.
You got to build that
commit to it.
All right,
I got. You have your color, and you go.
I don't know if Richie Pope is. I mean, Paul Pope is.
Paul Pope, yeah.
Shout out to Richie Pope too, but this is Battle Boy by Paul Pope, and I know he went to CCAD, and he's just an amazing artist.
Yeah, he is actually. If anyone's looking for visual storytelling, specifically in action, I say that he is a visual storyteller that is hard to beat. His movement, I mean, even looking at the backgrounds, because I will usually jump all up in artist behind. I'm not sure on what I don't think the kids are listening. I would jump in an artist behind
over the background.
They did not do backgrounds that established the space. Paul Pope don't do backgrounds. He don't establish spaces. He's like, this space is in your imagination. And you're like, you be like, all right, cool. All you can do is be like, that's cool. I'm with it. So yeah.
So let's I think that's all the books I got to show you. I'm gonna go ahead and ask that question, that raffle question again for anybody that missed it. Who's the biggest, most famous superhero comic created in Ohio? Superhero comic character created in Ohio. The biggest, most famous one from here.
It's just
I can't really say anything else. There's nothing else I can say that won't give it away. So
yeah, you can't say it. Hopefully, post that answer on Facebook.
Have Google. You have Google. If you're watching this, you have internet.
You
hurry, Google it when they're out.
If you're one of my students, don't Google that. That's against the rules, my students.
But yeah, anything else you wanna pitch in here? I feel like we covered relationship with comics. We went over and looked at some comics.
Do you know, this is the thing that so tomorrow is going to be the 1 year anniversary for me for moving to Ohio, and I moved here from New York. Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me. It feels like I had such a small window to acclimatize before I was locked in my apartment, and you were one of the folks that brought me into the fold.
No problem. That's what we do.
And one of the things that I did in comics in New York was I worked for Hyperallergic. Hyperallergic is an art magazine. It's a art publication. And I would do art comics about art. And one of the big things that I did a 6-part series called How to Protest Art. And one of the things, I mean, I covered how galleries I covered how museums got funded, how museums got worked. And I didn't really cover about how like art got priced and all that stuff. That's a whole other bag of that I ain't want to touch in. But I do want to say that my transition to Columbus has given me what do the kids call that? Hope. that art could be. See, this seems so cynical talking specific because I know a bunch of artists in New York who are making and doing wonderful things.
Yeah, I remember that hyperbole. You're
Hyperallergic. But yeah, I feel like coming out here, the industry is not more important than the art. Mm-hmm. And maybe you could school me. Maybe I just haven't dug deep enough. Maybe I just have like glossy eyes about the art industry out here. But like, there's something really beautiful about it in terms of the relationship that I see the artists have.
I feel good to hear that from the outside in. I mean, a lot of the artists, of course, there's going to be pros and cons everywhere. There's always going to be this problem here, this obstacle here. But I feel like typically as a city, as artists in the city, we overcome these obstacles together. For example, like all the protest stuff just happened recently, and then which had unfortunately led to some riots where a lot of windows got broken, and they board these broken windows up. And me and Brian are riding around, we're like, it looks like Mad Max out here. But we as a city, we took that and turned that into canvases. Like a phoenix, we were reborn from the ashes, and that's the type of stuff that I hope people continue to see about Columbus and remember that, there's always going to be maybe this clique of artists thinks they should be where this clique of artists is or something. There's always gonna be little stuff like that. And you need a little drama. Why do you think we have reality TV? You need it. It's boring, but at the core of it, I think the artists here love each other and they love art, and we just continue to push on and keep making great things.
Well, there's this other thing about Columbus, and
Okay.
I'm really excited. I'm really excited for things to see what happens to art out here. Is that it seems like the people love their artists out here. Like it's like there is a platform. I mean, just by being like I've seen like these like little mini like documentaries that engage with you, that engage with Brian, that engage with the museums, and it seems like there's like out being at the movie theater, the Gateway.
Yeah,
they would have
they would have with the artists and stuff.
Yeah, they were like,
maybe it's because we're from like a college sports town where we like to cheer for something or something. And that just rolls over to our artists too.
Yeah, I mean, there's something. I mean,
everybody shows me a lot of love, and sometimes I get messages like just appreciating me for being me, and I just makes me feel all warm inside.
Well, I look forward to finding all that dirt because y'all look pretty sparkly clean right now.
Oh, there's gotta be. There's gotta be.
But like, I have to say, like in the past year of being here, engaging with people who work in museums, people who work in galleries, people who make art, people like there's this enthusiasm.
Enthusiasts, yeah, we are enthusiasts.
And there's not too much. Oh man, that I worry about money. Like, I have.
I mean, doesn't everybody?
This is the thing about if I'm talking to a Columbus artist, I feel like I kind of have to either force a talk about money unless a job is on the line, in which no one asks a question, they just pay you. I've heard when that isn't the case. I've heard that has not been the case every time. But like as far as that conversation about money, it doesn't feel like an awkward conversation, like communal capitalism.
Oh, hold on. Shout out to Jennifer Ray for answering Superman. I bet you Googled it, and I'm proud of you for using it. And that's what life's about. Don't let them fool you. They think you should remember everything. We have resources. I hope you enjoy your gift card to wherever.
And I want to say that anybody who says that question was subjective because you think that Owlman is more important or whatever, you're wrong. Objectively true. Superman is the most famous, most important.
Who's the second most
superhero?
Famous superhero? Batman?
I dare somebody to name name somebody.
Am I sparking some fires now? Some comic artist is going to jump me in a parking lot. So you said, huh?
If you said anything other than Space Boy, you're wrong. You're wrong.
Now we're talking. I mean, how long have we been in here? Have we ever reached our time we were shooting for?
Oh, we got a little bit of room, got a little bit of leading room. I mean, I guess we could be wrapping up sooner than later, but
yeah, I figure we can talk about. You got any more topics? We can probably cover one more topic. I have written down here.
Well, I mean, this is something that I feel like we both have to deal with, and I'm not sure if I've seen a couple artists do this, where like they squeeze like a zine or a comic book in once a year, like bouncing your art practice. Because I know you're a painter. I see that painting in the background, and I paint. If I was in my studio, you see a big painting in my background. But like, how do you approach that art practice of being a writer, an artist? I know you animate too, and a painter, and doing all of these things. How do you deal with that kind of multifaceted practice?
I mean, usually it kind of, I feel like it had, like I said, like I'm like, I feel like I'm changing as a person a lot every year. So sometimes it's passively, I switch from one mode to another, but then it's also a full-time freelance artist. So it's also goes with the time. So in the summertime, I'm a teacher and I'm a muralist. So I do a lot more spray paint. I can't spray paint in the winter or whatever. But there are times when I have to switch that mode for a job. So I might be in like mural mode. I need to switch into, I don't know, collage mode or something like that. And that can be a struggle. I don't know. It's also like a two-sided sword, because also when you get tired of doing one thing, it helps to do something else. And then in that same way, it helps me like by letting me refresh, and maybe I'm on my tablet too much and my hand starts hurting, and now I'm rolling with a paint roller and I'm getting time for that to heal. And also it teaches you to look from different perspectives. I think that's one of the best thing I have in my art arsenal, is that I see things from a lot of different ways. I'm like, oh, this could be this could be that. Ask one of the homies, hey, how do you feel about that? They might say something mind blowing to me, but not to them, just because of that perspective change.
All right. So,
Moorhead wants to know what our favorite part of CXC is.
oh, my favorite part. Okay, so this is a tough one for me, specifically because I have a very personal favorite. Is the fact that I am an alumni from CCA, so that's California College of the Arts,
and so there's design on there.
Oh yeah. No, my email is practically identical, but they usually have a table there, and I get to see the comics students there, and so I get to see like one of my professors, and then I get to see the students there. But other than that personal thing, I'm like, for real, like hands down, one of the things that I'm really excited about is kind of like all of all of the queer panels.
Mm-hmm.
And like for me, like comics, like they're like exploitation films, you know? Like exploitation films gave you a taste of this sensational blackness. And I feel like when you look at like New York in the 80s and Vogue culture, you got this, you know, like queer blackness. And I like seeing
rise more in the comics recently.
Well, I feel like comics have really lent themselves, as far as the underground, to queerness and feminism. And I feel like those panels are usually at the cutting edge of storytelling. And I find that to be really
why do you think they're at the cutting edge of storytelling? Like, do you think it's because of something? Is it because, you know, like,
you're going to dig into my comic history. Oh, okay.
Diamonds?
I think I wrote an article once for the North Star, which is the revival newspaper of Frederick Douglass, ran by Sean King. And the article was about how there could never be a black Superman. That's a whole specific idea, but in it, I articulate the notion of black publishing in the 60s and 70s and the 50s, and how difficult it was to get things printed if you weren't going through a publisher. So while James Baldwin was killing it and a lot of black writers were killing it, in comics, publishers couldn't get black artists to make stuff because of racism. But because of women's comics in the 70s, and because of the free love movement in San Francisco, and gay comics in the 80s, that's the actual title, not like the broader gay comics. The title is gay comics. So women's comics, which is the actual titles, and gay comics, which is the actual titles, these titles kind of found these like amazing artists who've been developing.
But never had a chance to shine.
Well, they were always on the underground. So they were like the Run DMC of comics, where like at this point, I feel like with the acceptance of queer culture and equal rights movement having as much movement as it is, there was a quick jump for a lot of queer writers and illustrators to suddenly find more of a platform in some more mainstream publishers. And they have been doing this for so long that they have their message locked in and synced. Okay. And like,
I like that.
It's like you see them on a panel and they just like, okay, so I've been doing this since '92 and none of y'all care. And I'm here now. And now I got so much to say. And it's this amazing life.
Your answer is so much deeper than my answer. My favorite part of CXC is the parties, and you know this.
Oh, the karaoke. Oh my God. Yo,
You know, like they kind of just brought me in like a comic orphan, and just everybody was so accepting to me in CXC. I love everybody in there. You know, Jeff and rest in peace Spurgeon, and everybody else that's a part of Rebecca. Everybody
Yeah,
that's a part of CXC has treated me so good. You would think they've all known me my whole life, and it's just we work next to each other. We buy each other's work. You meet new people. People come in from out of town. We show them love. It's definitely like a family. And then we get to party with said family after
I
all
would
the.
remember. Here's a little bar talk. I would go to a bar with like a group of people, and then I would be at that bar, and I would bounce from 4 different tables,
Mm-hmm.
and the waitress would come by and be like, "Once you over," I was like, "Yeah, yeah, just leave that one piece of food over there because I'm gonna be back there in like 5 minutes. I'm gonna finish what I'm saying here, but I'll take the bear hair and I'll go back over there." And so there was this a community, and you know what? Honestly, that's not just my favorite part of CXC. I think that's my favorite part of comics. Like,
Oh
I think that's it. Like, there's no one understands the struggle. I
man,
can't
as a
remember
comic,
the artist.
you have to work by yourself so much. It's not. I mean, there are comics that do involve more people, of course, but as an individual comic artist, you gotta work by yourself so much, and you might not get to really go out and kick it or whatever. That might not be a lifestyle, and then comes along a con, and you get to see everybody. You've been talking online for months, talking
Yes.
about I do this, I'm doing that, and then you get to swap out and all that.
Yeah. No, I'm there, but I feel like it's because I've done studio visits
Hmm.
with painters,
Hmm.
and paint like art has an isolation thing, but like it's weird because the workload of painting, like I don't know, this might have just been New York. I have to say the spaces I've been to have been very different, and
Hmm.
so like my engagement is different in every new space. But like it'd be like you were out partying anyways every day with everyone you knew, even though you were all making art, and you would do studio visits and you'd be kind of partying in your studio visits, but like it's so difficult to like you can't like I find it impossible to like be hanging out with somebody in the room right now if we was hanging out and I was making a comic. I'd be
Right.
like,
It's kind of
yo,
too, yeah. I mean, I
hey,
feel
this is fun, but
so it's a way, but I feel you. It does seem easier to socialize while you're painting. It just has a different feel, like paint me
yeah.
like one of your French girls type feel. Like
There were times when
you
I'd be like, yo,
you
hop
don't
on the
really do
canvas.
comics
I remember
anymore.
painting with people. I'd be like, yo, hop on the canvas. Let's see what you got.
Yep.
It was like doing one-on-one like I was Michael Jordan.
So Jill wants to know. I already know your answer for this. Jill wants to know what's more important in comics, narrative or illustration.
Ooh, that's narrative all day, every day. I,
I don't know. I don't know.
hey,
I gotta give him a strong tie because if you have only narrative, you don't have a comic. That's just a book.
see, this is the thing about it. I think
But
that
you
right
can
now
have
we're
only
on.
illustrations that have a comic.
Yeah, but this is the thing about it is I would argue,
Okay.
and this is a semantic thing. This is kind of semantics. You can have a visual narrative that is not
Words.
highly rendered, and can still, if you are using those sequential images in a narrative way, you could still make something interesting.
Only way
Like
you
you
can
could do,
have a comic with just narrative is one of them children's books where each letter makes something. Like the A actually comes out of an apple and the B looks like a bumblebee.
um, there was man, this is gonna kill me. Oh, there's so many artists that like come like ooh, I'm gonna go with Joe Matt because he's the first name to come to mind.
Uh-huh.
Joe Matt does these beautiful works. They are not like I remember those were one of the first works that I got into after I was getting out of my '90s phase. When in the '90s, I wanted to see every muscle. I wanted to see every hair drawn.
That's what they
I
was
wanted to
doing.
see, huh?
That's what they was doing then, at least in the mainstream superhero comics that I read.
Yes. But then I picked up a Joe Matt comic, and this is uh, he would just that was like American Splendor. That was like it was daily life kind of stuff, and the rendering was not the point. The
Mm-hmm.
point was whatever the story was. No one like I didn't care about what the drawing was, how well the drawing. You could have switched out artists halfway through that thing. You could have done whatever you wanted. Now, I think it's kind of like it's like any other multimedia art. Like if you're making a film, you see one of the movies where you're like, man, that movie was pretty. It was garbage, but it was pretty.
Hate it.
I think that that's how comics often works.
Mm-hmm.
If you focus heavily on the illustration and rendering, you could still have a very good comic with a weak narrative.
Yeah,
if you focus in on characters instead of plot,
it's definitely a perfect blend in between. And you can have preferences on either side, but you need them both.
Ooh, you want to hear my favorite thing that I made this up. I very rarely feel confident about saying statement.
I'm ready to get this.
I quote a lot, and so this is one of the ones I made up. And I tell students this, and I want all y'all to hear this, all right? You can, making art is like cooking.
Mm-hmm.
And if you wanted to make something that tasted good, you could use fat, salt, or sugar, right? And you can make some nachos with that, and it ain't caviar. It ain't an expensive steak that's been cooked rare and all that. It's still delicious. But when it comes to making a story, making comics, sex, violence, and cute are just the fat, salt, and sugar of writing a story. And so you could overload that cute, you could overload that sex, you could overload that violence, and you'll find an audience for it. But it ain't gonna be filet mignon. It's gonna be some nachos. And that's cool. Just know you're making it. Just know what you're making. And then you can talk about your work all day.
I think that's a good as point as any to sign off on.
All right.
You want to say left to the people, any advice or any like just affirmations or some mantras you got going on you want somebody to hear?
Making long comics are really hard. Make short ones. They're fun.
I love
short
that.
comics are fun.
I'm gonna go with be kind to yourself and your neighbors and be punctual.
That's more applicable. That's all right. Take care. I love y'all.
Me too.